Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and in today's show we'll be deliberating on two very important topics. The first one considering Pakistan, and of course I'm talking about the recent new wave of terrorism that we've seen in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province of Pakistan. In regards to that, some of the developments I'll be sharing on the night of 26th and 27th of October 2024. 4 Khawarij were killed by the security forces in 2 separate operations in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. 2 terrorists were also neutralized in North Waziristan district. We also know that the fresh attacks amidst Pakistan's efforts for economic revitalization, for the new avenues that Pakistani government is going to and is determined to explore with regards to the untapped potential that Pakistan hasn't capitalized on yet. And of course, with regards to the foreign direct investment that also has been coming in, we've also seen the bullish trend in the stock market, all the positive economic indicators pointing in the right direction, but we see that the security situation in the country and of course how there's instability being promoted in the region at large, which affects this economic progress that the government is very determined to achieve. We also know that efforts are underway with regards to connectivity with the Central Asian states. CPEC has also entered its phase 2, and with regards to that, how there's this rise in the terror attacks we're seeing, of course, as a means to disrupt Pakistan's progress that it has been making on its economic and diplomatic fronts. A recent summit was held in Pakistan, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. One of its highlights was also the regional security threats, and of course all the members of the SCO, they also highlighted how this threat needs to be curbed down, and there needs to be concerted efforts by all the regional stakeholders with regards to creating an environment of peace, stability and progress for the shared future and shared progress of all the member states of the SCO. Secondly, in the second segment, we'll be talking about the US elections. 5th of November, of course, the day of American polls, the day the American people head to the polls, and of course the day when we'll be seeing the Republican candidate Donald Trump going head to head with the Vice President of America, the Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. Of course, in regards to that, we know it's a tightly contested race, as we are seeing from all the polling surveys. And we also know the two contestants, Trump being the Republican contestant and Kamala Harris being the Democrat contestant. Of course, it's a very tightly contested race that we're seeing for the White House. There's a polarization in the American society that we're seeing. There's a lot of conflicts, the conflict in the Middle East, the conflict in Ukraine, of course, and the other factors that are owing up to the different factors that our voters are considering, such as healthcare, immigration policies, and of course also the issues like healthcare, inflation, and the economic crisis that is being witnessed by the American people as well. So we'll be deliberating on all the different aspects regarding the American elections and the new wave of terrorism that we're seeing in Pakistan. In the studios, we've been joined by senior analyst Agha, Iqrar, Haroon. Along with that, we've been joined by Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik, who is also a senior analyst. Thank you both for your time and being part of the conversation. I'll start off from Mr. Agha, Iqrar, Haroon. So as we're seeing how the government has put in a lot of effort for economic revitalization, the government has been trying to attract a lot of foreign direct investment and has also been successful in all those. We also know the CPEC is entering its phase 2, but when we talk about this new wave of terrorism that we've witnessed, specifically in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, how do you think it's affecting the overall environment of the country with regards to all the progress that was being made on the economic front and on the diplomatic front as well?
Thank you, Rafae. First of all, let me add one point, then it will be easy for me to explain what I think about this. I had been covering Afghan war since 1995. So then from 95 to 97, and then from 2002 to 2006, while working with the international media. Afghanistan had always been used, you can say, for launching terrorism in this region. And Afghanistan actually used terrorism as a, you can say, leverage to deal with its neighborhood or with international forums. So terrorism is their, you can say, negotiating tool. so terrorism would be there and it will continue coming to Pakistan. Why? Because we are lagging to stop it. They tried to other Central Asian states also, and they injected a civil war in one of Central Asian states, which continued for 7 years, and I had been covering that war. But they managed. We are still, lagging the management, how to manage them. This is our problem. And in last 3 years, since Taliban have, they had come back to Kabul, they launched a basically economic terrorism on Pakistan also. If you go through the list of the 12 pointers of economic terrorism which were approved by the Swiss government in 2002, all 12 points, which were very long and I don't want to mention every point, but they are all pointers which had been launched by the Afghan government or interim government to Pakistan, including 3 more important. Basically flight of currency, you had been watching, and flight of edible, and then restrict international investment. What was your point? Wherever Pakistan could find foreign investment, you will find terrorism over there. It can be Gwadar, it can be Lucky Marwat, it can be any place where there is a possibility of foreign investment in Pakistan. And dollar was only in 2073 rupees in Kabul, but I was or you was getting it in 3,324 in Islamabad. We basically import edible oil from Far East countries, and this we basically spend money in for import, and they take everything to Afghanistan without not in dollars, in Pak rupees. This is what is this? These are all the basically one of 12 indicators of economic terrorism, and Pakistan had been facing for. You must appreciate the Chief of the Army Staff, who controlled all borders, and you have seen dollar which was 323 rupees, or it went down where it is now.
Definitely.
And also our supply chain became much better than it was, because we were producing or importing and everything was going to Afghanistan, and it was not going only for just, you cannot say they were buying it from Pakistan just to utilize it. No, this was their core point: suck it. Understand?
Yes.
Suck what? The edible, the currency, and stop investment in Pakistan. This is what they are doing.
So it was a strategic move.
This is a strategic move, and always Afghanistan, always Taliban did it and do it. They did it against Central Asian state in 90s. I had been covering that. They controlled. We are yet to control. That is the only problem.
Okay, point very well made, Mr. Agha. I'd like to include Mr. Ijaz Malik in the conversation as well, since Mr. Agha highlighted some very important points when we talk about the regional spoilers. Of course, Pakistan has also time and time reiterated that Afghanistan's soil is being used by those militant groups, and they're exploiting Afghanistan's soil to carry out instability in the region, to carry out their attacks in Pakistan, their cross-border terror attacks, and of course to create instability in the region as a whole. With regards to that, we also saw that the SCO summit, which was held in Islamabad, there was mention of how there's security instability being created in the region, which will affect the connectivity with the Central Asian states as well, which is an objective of the SCO. How do you think the SCO members and all the regional stakeholders, how could they put in their concerted efforts to curb this issue of terrorism that is emanating from Afghan soil? Of course, we know that the RATS instrument is in place with regards to the SCO, but what more do you think could be done?
First of all, the countries, SCO countries, some of them, they are, in addition to Pakistan, they are direct effectees of the terrorism which emanates out of Afghanistan. They have time and again raised their voices, China being one. Iran has serious issues, and so are certain other Central Asian states. And I think SCO could be a very potent forum, because the bilateral talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan hasn't worked. As Agha Sahib has very aptly highlighted that this is this has been terrorism has been a tool of their statecraft. They utilize that to coerce their neighbors, and unfortunately they have a support of our eastern neighbor. So the intent is provided by the Afghan regimes, whosoever it could be, and the capability is afforded by non-state actors and states which are against Pakistan. And why now? That's the question. Just because Pakistan has moved from a time where we had economic meltdown. Some were some facets of this was because of internal issues, political instability being the core issue behind that, and other was of course the global the war in Europe and then Middle East issues. So now that Pakistan has taken some concrete measures to revive its economy, the second phase of CPEC is in offering. Gwadar International Airport is ready but yet to be operationalized. The port is not being utilized even I would say marginally to its fullest capacity. So economic instability is their end product. Is this is what they want. It suits Afghanistan, it suits India, and maybe the CPEC security concerns, it suits certain others powers also who are apparently friendly to us. So this is a very complex issue, but what choice do we have? Of course we are open to negotiation on bilateral level, then regional cooperation and regional influence that could prove very important, because China has stakes in infrastructure development and other exploration in Afghanistan. So I think they carry a weight, and so many other integrated connectivity projects, they are hinged upon stability and cooperation in Afghanistan. Like pipelines, the Road and Belt Initiative, CPEC. So we need to have a consistent effort on multiple fronts. But coming to our counter-terrorism effort, we need to have a whole of the nation approach. Something of the kind that we achieved after a very unfortunate incidence of APS. At that time, we all the political parties, whether on the government side or the opposition, the provincial governments, they were all on the same page, and the net product was an instrument in the form of National Action Plan and a concerted effort on the part of our valiant armed forces in the form of Operation Zarbeas, which yielded results. But now, almost 9 or 10 years down the line, again the terrorism has we have seen a surge, particularly in the last 1 year. So our effort to handle this should also be increased proportionately. Capacity building of the law enforcement agencies other than armed forces, that's very important. Intelligence sharing is very important, because the dynamics of this terrorism is that the time and space for doing an act is on their side.
Definitely.
You cannot match that, unfortunately. But they thrive on their masking in the local terrain, whether through coercion, which we had seen in the earlier part in Swat, or through some kind of arrangements with the local populace. So we have to have local population on board. Even if we have some administrative issues with them, we have to bring them on board and we have to run a massive, winning hearts and mind, approach.
So, national campaign against terrorism.
Campaign. It's only then, because we have the capability of doing intelligence-based operation, but intelligence ultimately hinged upon human intelligence, which comes out of every household, every hujra in KP, every mosque in KP.
Definitely.
And armed forces cannot be everywhere. So it has to flow, the inflow has to come from the people through local informants, network of the police, levies, and other law enforcement agencies.
Well, definitely, Mr. Ijaz, that's a very important point that you raised. And you mentioned that as Pakistan was facing an economic meltdown, I'd also say that with regards to the SEO summit that was held recently in Pakistan, there was also propaganda being spread that Pakistan faces diplomatic isolation. But those forces that were spreading this kind of a propaganda, they had to come to Pakistan to attend the SEO summit themselves.
Exactly.
Of course, in regards to that, we've also seen, Mr. Agha, in the past, there were incidents such as the incident relating to Mubarak Hussain Patel, Kulbhushan Yadav, as he was caught red-handed in Pakistan trying to infiltrate the border. And when we talk about Afghanistan soil being used for, of course, militancy and cross-border terrorism, how do you think Pakistan as a regional player, because this terrorism, this militancy does not only affect Pakistan. We know the terror outfits like the ISKP, they have potential for global carnage, and what we've also seen what they've been carrying out, the potential that they have could prove to be catastrophic for the world if they are not curbed. How do you think Pakistan could have the regional players on board, have a more prominent voice in the international community with regards to those forces that are using the Afghan soil to carry out their cross-border terrorism and regional instability? How could Pakistan become a more prominent voice and actually convince the world community to take action against those spoilers of peace that are sitting in the region and promoting instability in the same region?
Look, every neighbor of Afghanistan has expressed, as mentioned by our senior friend, they are worried about this launching pad of terrorism. So everybody understands this. So there is no need to, cry more. Need is to what is to be done. Why only Pakistan is under attack? Why not other Eastern Central Asian countries? Why not Iran? Why? This is my question to my state. Since last 25 years, I am working in this region. This is the question. Why? I tell you. Because this, only this trans-border or what you can smuggling business. According to a report. Do you know what is the volume of this smuggling? This is 3,400 billion rupees per year. Understand? So, they don't want a strong border. They want to keep Pakistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran border a soft border. So, there is $1 billion game, and this goes to everybody, irrespective of, caste, class, and color. So there are so many factors which don't want Pakistan, Iran and Pakistan, Afghanistan border at peace. This is one of the reasons. Secondly, we are yet to decide whether we found Pakistan or liberated Pakistan or made Pakistan for Pakistan or for Afghanistan. We are not clear. Our academia is not clear, intelligentsia is not clear, very important sensitive organization within the state is not clear. Whenever we talk, okay, don't stop edible going to Afghanistan because Afghans would be, in a problem. Pakistan was, my grandfather gave his life for Pakistan, not for Afghanistan on 1947. This we have to decide. All Central Asian states says Tajikistan is for Tajikistan. Uzbekistan is only for Uzbekistan. Turkmenistan is only for Turkmenistan. Pakistan is a vast, which is Pakistan is for Afghanistan and Afghanistan may not be for Pakistan. So we have to come out of this narrative, this cliche. This cliche is basically playing havoc with our mindset. as you mentioned, I will go to KP and ask your youth, who are you? Get the message. I don't want to share this message over here. This is the chaotic situation Pakistan is facing today.
And Mr. Agha, sorry to cut you here, but do you think more stricter border management
Not only
and
border
tech
strict
and
management,
intelligence
no,
trading?
no, not only
Do you
border
think-
strict management. Pakistan state has to announce that Pakistan is only for Pakistan. Its all resources is only for Pakistan. Its youth is only for Pakistan. Then you can fight. Otherwise, you are always, you won the war and then start again going down. Because our youth is not clear in KP who is their friends and who are their foes. India is directly involved from India to Afghanistan, attacking Pakistan from Afghanistan or through Afghanistan. But a normal Pakistani thinks that only India is our enemy. Whenever you ask what about Afghanistan, they are our friends, they are our brothers, they are our Muslim brothers. So Central Asian states are also Muslims. They never use Afghans are our brothers or Muslim brothers. They say the Afghans are Afghans, we are Tajik, Afghans are Afghan, we are Uzbek. So this is the dilemma we are facing for the last 40 years.
So of course, that's a very important point that you raised, Mr. Agha. But with regards to that, Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik, I'd like your concluding remarks as well with regards to this topic. When we talk about Indian involvement, of course, we know that the militant groups that are active in Afghanistan, that are carrying out this cross-border terrorism and these terrorist attacks, of course, we know time and time again they have some kind of backing from our eastern neighbor. Of course, and with regards to that, there's also been incidents in the past when Pakistan has, such as I mentioned, the incident regarding Kulbhushan Yadav. How do you think, of course, when we talk about curbing these hegemonic designs and this nexus that is proving to be very chaotic for the region and proving to be catastrophic for regional connectivity and regional progress, how do you think Pakistan and the region at large could curb down this nexus and of course the militancy that arises from this nexus, and of course give more impetus to shared values of cooperation, regional peace, regional harmony, and of course a shared progress in a shared future?
Before I answer your question, I would like to just add to what Agha Sabit said. We desperately need to revisit our Afghan policy.
Yes.
And it should not be a government's policy. It should be a state policy where all political parties and all ethnic groups which are directly involved, they should be on board. We have to sensitize those people who have a blurred vision about Afghanistan, particularly the Pashtun belt of Afghanistan, that they are our brothers and we have we share historic relations. Yes, but then today's world is nothing but geoeconomics. And unfortunately, we have not been able to build a narrative for our youth in KP that what damage has been done to their economy, what havoc has been played in last 40 years to the livelihood of the Pashtuns on this side of the Afghan border, because they were very welcoming back in late 70s, because at that time obviously that Ansar and Muhajireen kind of narrative, it was
and we've always been hospitable towards them as well.
Yes, and we were, I would say, very innocently handling that. And then there was a bubble which was created because of the vested interest of American-led coalition at that time. So they provided us some kind of economic wherewithal to deal with Afghan refugee issue at that time. But that bubble didn't last long. It was just within less than a decade that America left this region without solving any of the associated problems which were created by their interventions. And here we are discussing the same things after 40 years, that what was shown in 1988 Geneva Convention, and now we are Geneva Accord, sorry, and now we are just reaping the,
well, hopefully,
the unfortunate result of that.
Well, hopefully having these discussions and of course promoting our national interests, of course having these conversations with you, it is a message to the nation and of course highlighting the true friends of Pakistan and what we need to do to protect our national interests. Senior analyst Agha Iqrar Haroon, thank you for your time and being part of the conversation. Air Marshal retired Ijaz Malik, thank you for your insights as well. Of course, we'll be talking about the US elections as well,
Thank you.
But right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we'll be deliberating on the second segment now, where we'll be talking about the US elections. Of course, 5th of November, the day the Americans go to polls. A very tightly contested race as we see the Republican candidate Donald Trump against the Vice President Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. We know it's a very hotly contested race for the White House, as we're seeing all the surveys from the polls, all the poll surveys, they talk about how there's little margin for the both, and of course it is going to be truly it is going to be conclusive after the polls, as it is too premature to say with regards to the margin of error that is coming with the poll surveys as well. The US nation, if we talk about it, how the trends are moving right now, it stands polarized, as we know with regards to the conflict in the Middle East, how there's talk of immigration policies, healthcare, education and other policies as well. On Skype, we've been joined by Mark Meirowitz, who is a professor of the State University of New York Maritime College. Thank you for your time and being part of the conversation. And on phone line, we've been joined by co-anchor Jawad Tehami, who is in the United States at the moment to cover the American elections. Thank you for joining us, Jawad. It's a pleasure to have you all the way from US. We'll start off our conversation from Mr. Mark. Mark, talking about the American elections, 5th of November, the day is very near, of course. There's a lot of trends we're seeing, but what I'd like to ask you with regards to the new voters that we're seeing, how do you think social media and internet and all those social media trends are going to be impacting the voter sentiments and the voter trends in these elections?
Well, I think you mentioned the margin of error. And that's very important, because when they say 50-50, that doesn't mean that. It could be 54, 53, sometimes 3 points up or down. So we really don't know. Basically, in the concluding period of the election, and remember that Harris wasn't the candidate. Harris was designated basically by the Democratic Party, and nobody voted for her. Trump won in the primaries. And so there's a question about Harris. She was VP, to find out what does she stand for. You mentioned social media trends, but I think this is a big issue in terms of her not doing any interviews. Now she's doing some interviews, but we're still unclear as to what she stands for, what are her points. So we saw in the recent rallies, we saw Trump's rally yesterday, was very clear, where he is talking a lot about the immigration issue. I'm not saying that's the only issue. He talks about a lot of issues. And on the other side, Harris had a rally with Michelle Obama, and that was all about women's rights, Roe v. Wade, and abortion policy. And that's where the Democrats feel they have a shot at getting a lot of votes from women. And on the immigration side, Trump is trying to get basically a wide swath of votes in terms of issues concerning the border. And I'm not saying those are the only issues, but those really stand out as very significant issues. And the question, which we don't know the answer to, because the election hinges on these swing states where Trump and Harris have been running back and forth, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, Arizona, but really a lot of Michigan, a lot of Pennsylvania. Our system operates not on the popular vote, but on the electoral college vote, where it is weighted by the population of the states, where California has the most, and then the smaller states have the least. Pennsylvania is very important. It has 19 electoral votes. You need to get 270 out of 538. So that's a big chunk. So the candidates are focusing on where they think the swing states are, where we don't know the result. But to answer your question about the trends, we're just a couple of days away, and we just don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to be awfully close, I think.
Mark, we're also seeing a divide as what I was reading earlier before the show started. Of course, we're seeing the male voters having a more inclination towards Donald Trump and the female voters having more inclination towards Kamala Harris, as what the poll surveys are showing at the moment. How do you comment on that specifically with regards to both the candidates that we're seeing for this tight race?
I don't know that it breaks out that way. Again, there's a lot of analysis. I mean, some of the people who are experts, and a friend of mine who's an expert, he says the key to the election is not male or female, but undecided voters. Now, it's hard to believe that at this point, a few days before the election, there were undecided voters, but that's really what the candidates are trying to crystallize their message. Harris is having a very hard time in crystallizing and explaining her message. Trump's message is very, very, I think, clear. He was president for 4 years. The issue is Harris was vice president now since 2021, and the question is, what did she achieve? What did she do? And the question was posed to her as to could you tell us whether there was anything different that you could say about yourself and about Joe Biden's policies? And her answer was, I can't think of anything. So this election, I'm not so sure the way you cut it male-female, although the abortion issue, Roe v. Wade, and the fact that Roe v. Wade, which provided a certain standard for abortions, is a big women's rights issue. And with Michelle Obama, they are trying, and you're right, to focus on the women's vote. But whether Trump is just a voter just a person who attracts male voters, I'm not so sure. I just don't know. I mean, it's hard to know. I think immigration is an issue that cuts across male, female, everybody, because there's a concern about the border, and Trump has been hammering this issue on, and it seems to resonate. On the other hand, this abortion issue, Michelle Obama, she spent 20 minutes at least talking about being a woman and women's rights and how Trump is interfering with that. So, one is puzzled and befuddled whether this is an effective strategy. I guess, to answer your question, we will find out on the 5th of November.
Definitely. And lastly, Mark, I'd like to ask you, we have a conflict going on in the Middle East. What way do you think that will hold in these elections?
I want to be candid about this. I mean, I actually teach among my courses American foreign policy, and we have focused on the question of foreign policy in the election. The truth is, Americans don't vote based on foreign policy. They based on economy, they vote based on jobs, they vote based on grocery prices and gas prices. They don't vote on foreign policy, although in some states like Michigan, the Middle East crisis is a very big issue. But what Trump did was he held a rally in Michigan with the Muslim community, and it was very successful. So it's very hard to tell how that issue is going to pan out. He got endorsements from segments of that community in Michigan. So we just don't know. I think it's an imponderable to understand whether the feeling in Michigan of, let us say, frustration with the Biden-Harris policy in the Middle East is going to translate into people actually, as they say, not voting for Harris, or maybe they'll come out and vote for Harris. It's hard to know. So the Middle East, and then you have Ukraine, and there the issue is, should the United States be funding the Ukrainians in terms of their war with Russia? And that's a tremendous issue, but mostly for policymakers, I don't think when people go into the ballot box that they are going to think, well, I don't know, I like Trump's policy on Ukraine or the Middle East. I mean, they're going to be going to the ballot box and they're going to be thinking, I mean, how am I going to do in terms of my future and my job and the economy and my career? And am I going to have to pay more for groceries at the supermarket? Those are the issues at the gas station. those are the issues that will be pivotal in this election. And I don't think, and again, if you remember, President Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. And honestly, I think that plays out. It's not foreign policy, stupid. It's the economy, and economy. And the question is, who's going to do a better job with the economy?
Definitely, Mark. Of course, there's a lot of factors that are in play, and of course, everyone has a belly to fill. With that, I'll move towards Jawad Tehami, our co-anchor, who is in the United States to cover the US elections. And Mark, I think he has a question for you. Jawad, please go ahead. The floor is all yours.
Okay, so thank you very much. Yes, I just arrived a couple of days before we're here, and yesterday I got that very chance to attend that particular rally, a very large rally over there at the Madison Square Garden in New York City of former President Donald Trump. Of course, we could see that how his supporters and the likely voters were charged up. Every single issue Donald Trump was talking about that was cheered upon so greatly by all the supporters present over there. Was stringent security measures which were put in place at that particular point. Also, there were a number of issues former President Donald Trump has talked about, primarily talked about immigration. As just Mark has mentioned, that it remains to be one of the key issues as far as the voter sentiment is concerned this time around. There are a number of other issues, but there has been criticism regarding some remarks made towards certain communities as far as one of the comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, made some remarks regarding the garbage floating in the middle of the ocean. So that actually garnered huge criticism. Before heading towards what the swing states might do this time around and what are the trends at the moment showing, I have a question for you, Mark. So this particular remark that was seen yesterday at that huge public gathering there at Madison Square Garden by this comedian, we've seen there are large populations in North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania when we talk about Puerto Ricans. And these three swing states are going to matter a lot because Pennsylvania holds 19 electoral college votes, North Carolina has 16, and Georgia likewise 16. Do you think it's going to create a resentment among that large population of voters in these three swing states towards the Republicans after these remarks?
First of all, interestingly enough, the Trump campaign, which has never done this, disavowed those remarks. They have never, if you recollect, Jawad, you'll agree with me, they never disavow anything. On this one, they said, we don't support this, this is not correct. By the way, just for a fact of information, the citizens of Puerto Rico cannot vote in the U.S. presidential election. So that is just an important point. Yes, there are communities, but the Hispanic community is made up of many different people from many different countries, not just Puerto Rico. And, there are large populations in different states. And the Hispanic community, as far as we're reading the tea leaves, seems to be, the numbers seem to be favorable for Trump. So I think the Democrats, highlighted this. You were at the rally and you saw the reaction of the crowd. I watched the whole thing on C-SPAN. And interestingly enough, you notice Trump didn't talk about abortion. He talked about, because that's the one that Harris nailed him on that in the debate. He had a very hard time dealing with that, saying it's states' rights. And that's one where he was super vulnerable. He doesn't talk about it. He talks about immigration. He talks about economy. The fact that a comedian much earlier, you were there for the whole rally, so that was way before Trump took the stage, made such a statement, which is insulting and inappropriate. And the Trump campaign disavowed it. In my opinion, that means move on. But the Democrats can't move on. They found, again, with Trump, because their whole campaign is anti-Trump. Their whole campaign of the Democrats is to undermine Trump. Trump is a Hitler. Can you imagine that they said, because many years ago in the period of World War II, there was actually a Nazi rally in the old Madison Square Garden, not even in that location. And then they start saying, well, this is reminiscent. He's a fascist and Nazi and all that. So now they picked up on this issue. Because in my opinion, Jawad, I think the Democrats are desperate. They're desperate. They're not talking about, this is my policy, it's better than Trump's. This is my idea about how to fix the relationship between the U.S. and the rest of the world. No,
I just get your point, Mark. I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. Very quickly, a closing comment regarding this before I head to Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik. Now, the reaction from the campaign from the Democrats regarding this particular comment made regarding Puerto Ricans was, quote unquote, Puerto Rico is home to some of the most talented, innovative, and ambitious people in our nation. So they need a president who actually sees that strength in them. So how do you look at that particularly? And the other factor that you've just talked about, that the Democrats have been targeting Donald Trump with different names. We've seen Kamala Harris calling certain names like fascist, being unhinged. But during yesterday's rally in Pennsylvania, there is a talk that she had more of a conciliatory tone. What do you say about that?
I don't believe it. What we're hearing from the Democrats, from Harris and her own surrogates and Waltz, is an unending barrage of personal attacks on Trump. Because, look, their policies are not clearly articulated. The vote in this election hinges on the anti-Trump vote. In New York, and you can go to you're in New York, so maybe we can even get together one day. It would be very nice. The point is, if you look at the polls, Jawad, there are lines and lines and lines. And I hear that in New Jersey, too. This is going to be the biggest turnout ever. And why? Because the anti-Trump vote, this is what the Democrats need to pull. If they can pull out enough of the anti-Trump vote, they might be able to win in a squeaker. But, you know, you got Trump saying his points. Harris doesn't articulate. And so it's just personal attacks. I wish Harris and Waltz would stop that and tell us what it is they're going to do if they get the job.
Okay, Mark, I'm short of time. I'll have to go towards Mr. Malik to take his view. Mr. Malik, do you think immigration remains to be the key issue here for this presidential election? I got to talk to a lot of people over there at the Trump's rally yesterday in New York at Madison Square Garden. People are of the view, yes, it remains to be the key issue. Do you think it's going to play as a decisive factor this time around? Also, we have seen once again President Donald Trump saying that he's going to, on day one, he's going to enter into the largest deportation drive in the U.S. history. What's your understanding?
Yes, I think, Jawad, it will remain a prime issue for the domestic voters audience, obviously, and I would agree with Mark that historically American election has been based on internal dynamics, domestics, not on foreign policy, and it is the swing votes which would ultimately swing vote states which would decide the fate of who enters the White House. And apparently the Democrats, they have not been able to give any clear or candid arguments to counter whatever has been going on in the rallies.
Well, definitely with that, we'll have to wrap up. Of course, that's all the time that we have for today. We discussed the US elections and the new wave of terrorism that we're witnessing in Pakistan. Of course, I'd like to thank all of our guests, Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik, Mark Meirowitz and Jawad Tehami. Thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation. See you same time tomorrow. Till then, take care.